The views and opinions expressed during Love and Life with Lana and Dave are those only of the speakers and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or the position of our podcast hosts or affiliates. Any content provided is not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, anyone, or anything. All right, let's do it.
You're listening to Love and Life with Lana and Dave, the podcast where logic is power and you take control. Thank you for tuning in and making the choice to listen in and get ideas for your own love and life. Now, here are your hosts, Lana Williams and David Vaccaro.
All right, so this should land around the 4th of July. The topic today decided to, it is a holiday, so maybe we'll talk about some introspective stuff. Very small, hopefully very short podcast, but everybody knows how I am as far as how long-winded I can get. Two-parter. First part on this is going to be about energy. So I was speaking with a friend of mine a couple weeks ago. We were just talking about just basic energy. What makes certain people, if you've ever been in a room and there's a person who's of some sort of negative quality that kind of is in that room, and for some reason, without speaking to them, without doing anything, you can sort of pick up on the fact that they're just not a pleasant person. They maybe bring down the energy in the room, right? They sort of feel like they're pulling all the oxygen out of the room. There's some kind of a negative or black cloud or some kind of, however you want to describe it, where it's actually bringing people around them down. That's a thing. I mean, I know it seems weird, but there is an energy, or I guess an unspoken dynamic that some people carry, right? And then there's also people that are just happy and bubbly and genuinely happy about what's around them. Obviously, there's people that are happy that are masking as such. And I think if you have an intuition to you and you have some sort of idea, I think you, as people, we read other people sort of it's part of our DNA that we read other human beings' body language, right? Their inflection and the things that they put off as energy, we pick up. Now, I don't know if you're somebody who can pick up energy as it's happening. There is a word, there are people that are what they would call empathic, or I think there's a little bit of a confusion about what that means. But what I'm talking about here is just like the ability to read someone's energy from across a room. They're not actually coming over to you and talking to you, or they're not giving you any obvious signs of distress or happiness or sadness or despondency, but you're just picking it up, right? So in the context of, and we were just talking about this, like in the context of friendship, people that you meet, or even, people that you're at some point looking to date or whatever, obviously there's an organic quality that I think most of us hope for or gravitate towards. Don't get me wrong, but somebody's energy might be an underlying factor in which they're trying to do something. And, this goes back to the podcast. I always send people back to my why podcast, right? Because why is the word that you should really apply to just about everything. Like why? Why is this person, if somebody comes to me and they're telling me they're a good person, or they're a strong person, or they're a good looking person, or whatever it is that they're trying to convey to me, I'm never going to really listen to what they're saying so much as I'm going to try to figure out why it is they're trying to tell me that. Is it that they feel that they are not good, not strong, not, attractive, or whatever it is that they're trying to convey? Are they having issues underneath that with who they are? Are they trying to project something onto people that they maybe themselves don't believe? Are they sort of like trying to convince people of something that like maybe they don't themselves think is happening? So to me, energy matters, right? And again, there are people that will come into a room and there's the slightest little thing. I mean, I'll ask you to look up some stuff like micro expressions. There are people who convey micro expressions that you pick up on that you may not know on the surface are happening, but your body, your sight, your sound, or your audio, your sight, your ability to hear, the smell that you have in the room, all kinds of things like that. Those are to detect. I mean, for the most part, probably for us to survive as human beings, those are things that we have built in to detect happiness or risk or safety or things that we probably needed to survive, but also to thrive, right? These are things that our bodies, I would imagine, are trying to, as much as we can, determine. And there's a lot of people that will give us way more about who they are by not speaking, right, than telling us who they are. And again, there's this phrase I grew up with: walk softly and carry a big stick or something like that, but to walk softly, I don't want to use the whole phrase, but the beginning of it is to say walk softly is to, in my opinion, I look at it like, don't go around telling people who you are. Obviously, anything subjective, which I've covered before, somebody trying to tell you they are something that they can't possibly know and somebody else has to determine, there's a reason for that. We were talking in the sense of if you are talking to somebody and you're trying to get something from them for whatever reason, if you're a salesperson and you're trying to get them to buy a product, or you're somebody who's trying to get a phone number out of a girl, a guy that's trying to get a phone number of a girl that you want to date, or a prospective friend that you're trying to be familiar with, there are people that what I would try to say are trying to game the system. They're trying to go around any kind of organic familiarity. In my opinion, anybody that's trying to rush a process that should just be taking place naturally is suspect. Maybe not because they're trying to do something bad or they're not trying to hurt you, but there's an agenda to what they're doing. There's a reason why they're trying to go around whatever the normal process is. And when you meet somebody as a friend or as somebody that you are acquainted with in your life, and this goes with coworkers and with people in your community or whatever, there are people that are kind of, I'll use an example of the people that use names. If you're working for a lot of companies and that you talk to customers, you are supposed to use the customer's name and then repeat it back to them, and they are supposed to feel a certain way about that. To some degree proven, and if you're a customer, you're not going to really be offended by somebody that remembers your name and says it back to you. That's fine with you. You're probably okay with that. You're probably impressed by that, right? But if somebody comes up to you in just everyday life and wants to be friends with you and they use your name a whole lot and it makes you feel weird, there's a reason for that. That's your consciousness or your intuition kind of tingling, like a spidey sense, like what is going on here. And when somebody's doing that, they may not be doing it for nefarious purposes. They may not be trying to hurt you or do anything to you. But the fact that your instinct and your intuition, you become heightened as far as awareness of this, there's a reason for that. So there's an author by the name of Gavin DeBecker, and he has a book called The Gift of Fear. I'm just going to drop that in here. If you ever get a chance to read that book, it's really good, just because what it teaches you to do is kind of stop and pay attention to how you feel about your environment, how you feel about what things are that are happening around you. So if somebody's talking to you and it seems like they're okay and they're saying all the right stuff and you can't really pinpoint anything about what they're doing that's upsetting or offensive, but it bothers you, that's kind of in the line or in the vein or adjacent to the gift of fear of your body's trying to tell you something's not right. Now, it could be anything, but what you're seeing and what you're hearing and the energy you're getting is not jiving. Something underneath what they're saying and what they're trying to tell you, what they're saying, what you're hearing and seeing, something underneath that is not matching up with what they're trying to convey, right? And again, I'm not saying that anybody that comes up to you and has an agenda underneath what they're telling you has a bad agenda. However, it's not natural, and your body picks up on that. So that's energy. My reason for getting into this, of course, is he and I were talking about just dating, women and men, and when you're out there. And I've tried to tell guys a million times, and they think that I'm wrong about this. I don't know why. As somebody who's been in nightclubs for 40 years, and somebody who's been in social situations for 40 years, and somebody who analyzes everything around me and everything I see, when I tell guys, do not come at a woman expecting to get something from her. If you like somebody, talk to them. If you don't really know across the room if you like somebody that you see, not 100%, you could say, well, I like what I'm looking at, but I have no idea what I'm dealing with. I mean, there's so much beyond what you see across the room from somebody that obviously, so if you strike up a conversation and if you're a good conversationalist and you don't have what I call outcome dependency, meaning it doesn't matter how things turn out. You're just going to be a better person. You're going to be happier in life because of that. However, if you come somebody with an agenda and you start talking to somebody and your ultimate goal is to get a phone number, to take somebody on a date, to somehow connect with them later, it will overshadow your conversation. I don't care what you say. I've talked to several men that tell me, oh, I may want to get a girl's phone number. I may want to date her, but I know how to do it so that she isn't aware of that. I'm telling you guys, we can tell. I don't care what you say. We're aware of that. And there's several things you're going to do if that's your goal that are going to throw off energy that even if we don't really understand what that goal is, or we're really not sure where you're going with it, we can tell it is not genuine. We can tell that what you're saying and what we're seeing does not match with whatever your agenda or your goal is. And if that's off, then we're going to go on the defensive. And as I've said before, if we're on the defensive, we will not be able to get to know you. You might be a great person, but if we're on the defensive, we'll never be able to understand who you are or read you at all. Our whole goal is to back you off. So some women, it depends. There's if a guy's really good looking and she likes him, she's going to be okay with that. Well, in some sense, if she's interested, that might throw off her radar. And women, of course, are taught. I don't know about guys. I can't speak for men as far as because I'm not one, right? Most of the guys that I talk to don't really go through this as kids, but women are taught and that's why The Gift of Fear is such a good book. Women are taught repeatedly to check ourselves and double check ourselves. And we're always taught to like stop thinking that everything is wrong and bad. And so we're always second guessing ourselves based on what we feel or what we think is happening. And if we feel like we're in danger and we act as if we're in danger, we're told that we're just being rude, we're being whatever, too picky, we're catastrophizing, we're doing all kinds of stuff like that. And again, maybe we can have a whole different conversation about men and what they're raised for as far as their safety is concerned, right? And whether or not they're reading people the right way. I personally believe that the men that are sort of laid back and sort of like, hey, whatever happens, happens. I mean, nobody as a man should want a partner that doesn't want him back. I mean, basically that should be the way it is. But it doesn't go that way a lot of times. And so there's no formula or trick to get a girl to like you that isn't interested. I mean, you can maybe get her to go to dinner with you. You can maybe get her to engage with you for a little while. But at the end of the day, if she's not interested, she's not interested. And in social norms years ago, there were times where, you were told, well, if you hang in there long enough, you may change your mind about it, or this person may grow on you. I don't personally believe that. I believe that we've been taught to not discard somebody that's being nice to us, regardless of interest. We're coming out of that period of time, and I think years ago there was a point in time where that might have been an effective strategy. If you weren't getting along in the world, somebody comes along and offers to give things to you. There was a gratefulness that we're supposed to have for that. And at this point, we don't really need somebody to come along and take care of us in that way. And so maybe I think we're dropping a lot of that. Well, I need to be polite. Now, we to some degree, with some women, we need to be polite because we're just not going to, it'll just keep us from being killed if we are nicer. That shouldn't be, unfortunately, but we have, an underlying fear sometimes depending on our environment or who we're talking to or whatever, where somebody could snap on us and not like something we're saying, and we could end up suffering for that, and we know it. And I don't know what to say. I'm sure there are men who go through the same thing, but it is a real fear that women have. At the end of the day, though, somebody's energy, if I read something that somebody sends me, or I'm standing there talking to somebody that's trying to convince me of something, they're trying to make me think that they're cool, they're smart, they're a conversationalist, they're whatever. You can usually tell by what amount of convincing you that they're trying to do, especially when you're not asking. When somebody comes up to you and starts trying to convince you how great they are and you didn't even ask, there's definitely something going on there. Whatever it is, I don't know. Could be their own self-esteem. Could be that if they convince you that they're as good as they think they are, then they're going to go home happy, and that's the only risk there is to it. But usually, when somebody's trying to get familiar with you that doesn't know you and is trying to shortcut that. I've said this in the podcast before, but anybody who's got any kind of interest in your well-being is never going to make you do something you don't want to do. It's never going to tell you you're wrong for not going along with what they want. They're going to want you to be genuinely and mutually interested in whatever it is that they're trying to do. They're not going to make you feel bad for needing to know that somebody's safe or that somebody is genuine or anything like that. And when somebody starts attacking you because you're telling them, hey, I don't know you, I don't have any idea what your deal is, maybe they know that they're not dangerous, but you know what? We don't know the difference. And there's no way for you to prove it unless you want to give us like 5 months of your time. And we'll figure it out at that point. But there's nothing you could say in the moment that's going to change our mind about that. And the fact that you're trying to do that, in my opinion, is even worse. That's more of an example of that. Hey, this dude, he's trying to tell me that he's fine. Well, I don't know. And when I tell him that I don't know, I'm getting anger from him about it, whatever. Anyway, also there are people who are trying to, and again, maybe they don't know social norms, or they haven't been around enough to read people's body language or energy and understand, hey, this person's uncomfortable with me talking to them. This is whether it's a guy or a girl or whoever it is. In some sense, there is an energy that comes off of everybody. That's why they say dogs and bees can smell fear. Well, that's an actual thing. There's a whole physiological thing that goes on that dogs and bees are tuned into that creates a situation, you know what I mean, where they will capitalize on fear if they sense it. And it's not something that you personally can tell them, or there's no body language or anything that you're actually doing. There's just a physiological change in you that they can smell out. They've got the actual, whatever it's olfactory or whatever you want to call it. There's a chemistry that will be created by you being fearful that will actually draw them. That's it. So when you say, well, I can act like I'm not scared, and I guess that's why I use this as an example. I can act like I'm not scared, and then they'll go away because I've acted differently. And it doesn't matter because underneath your body chemistry is what it is, and your energy is what it is. And so you can walk around all day behind a beehive and act like you're not scared. But if you are, they're going to sense it. And there's nothing you can do. So looking at that in a sense of there are other people out there that can sense your ingenuine whatever have it be. And again, doesn't mean you're going to harm anybody. It just means that your actions and your your body language and your actions and your energy aren't all lining up together, and the other person is catching on to that, right? Understand that. That's a thing. That's why we always say desperation is something that you can smell. There's that line. I always say that line in Singles of the desperation is the world's worst perfume. It is. In that if somebody is just desperate for somebody to pay attention to them, to date them, to befriend them, to hire them, to anything, it's very apparent that that's what is going on. And no matter how hard they mask it, the underlying energy of desperation comes through to the point where either you can't keep it together long enough to look like you're cool enough not to be desperate, or, it's a very high physiological change in you and your actions and what you're doing that is alarming the other person. And I don't even know if they know what the alarm is. A lot of times they just see something that just doesn't sit with them. So this person was telling me, I walked into this room one time and there was this person, there's always one person that he was telling me that at one point this happened to him, but in general, we started talking about, there's people that are sort of people that you see other people just dive to get away from. When they come through a room, people just sort of avoid them and walk away in the other direction. Those people may not be aware their energy is the thing. And those people will blame all kinds of other things on the fact that nobody wants to be bothered with them, and being in denial and having those people see, oh, well, it's because I'm not good looking, or it's because I'm not tall enough, or it's because I don't have the right college degree, when none of that stuff is correct. You can come up with examples of people who haven't even graduated high school, but are just the most popular social people in the world, and people that have several degrees that nobody wants to talk to. So none of that stuff really is true, but it's a bummer to see people pacify themselves to say, well, instead of saying, gee, my personality might suck, maybe I should try to do something about it. For some reason, people think it's an outward, usually superficial thing that's throwing off all kinds of people. And in my opinion, if every single person's reacting to you the same way, being that we know people are attractive in different ways, everybody values different things differently. But if 98% of the people you run into treat you the same, it's probably some kind of inner issue that you have, and it's probably a personality issue. And it's the one thing for some reason everybody that has this problem cannot for the life of them understand. So it's just kind of funny. Anyway, I just wanted to get into that as far as energy is concerned. Of course, the first thing that you want to do is just ask. Obviously, you don't want to go around analyzing everybody to the point where you don't have any fun. But once in a while, when somebody asks you something that's odd, just kind of ask them, well, gee, don't ask them, well, you can if you want to, but for the most part, ask yourself why they would be asking you that, or they would be telling you that, or they would be talking to you the way they are, or whatever. Sometimes it's a sad thing. Sometimes you say, well, I'm not going to argue with this person. I'm not going to get into it with this person because I know where they're at in life. They may be depressed. They may have just lost somebody they love. They may have just lost a job. They may have just found out they were terminally ill, whatever it is. That's causing them to be a different person with me than they usually are. And so I kind of know, because I know their background and I know where they're coming from, I'm not going to attack them based on something they said to me that was hurtful, or that was an attack on me, right? As humanity is concerned, right? Let's try to, the one thing I really hate, and I understand that the internet is what it is and everybody on the internet is immune to any kind of accountability, and that's most of the time why they say stuff they say, but you can't stop people from attacking you. You can't stop people from insulting you, right? But what you can do is learn how not to take it personally. I know it sounds silly, but you have to look at the credentials of the person talking to you. It's usually somebody you don't know. You have no idea who they are. There are some people who are out there looking to troll specifically just to piss you off, right? Do you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, or do you want to give them the satisfaction? One way or the other, what good does it do you to internalize some stuff stuff like that, right from somebody who you don't even know, who's telling you. I actually I saw an exchange today. Somebody that in my group, there's several moderators, and they're really good people. And one of them, got attacked by a member in the group today, being called all kinds of names that don't even make any sense and have nothing to do with who this person is. Why? Because this is a complete stranger to them. And they walk in, knee-jerk, I got to tell you, knee-jerk emotional reactions are just ridiculous. Like usually it's just a complete bullfight attack at somebody that like you don't even know who they are, you don't even know what they're saying. You just take a certain way and it offends you or it makes you feel a certain way, and then you can just kind of blast everybody. I mean, the fact that people are that emotionally unintelligent, I guess maybe when you're going through stuff again, who we don't know this member, so this person's group, so we don't really know what her issue is, but she, kind of came out full blast, double barrels, it's kind of like, whoa, put your gun down, Tex, and let's talk about what, like you're not even really sure what this conversation is about. You just kind of picked a random comment and just got extremely over the top offended by it, and then decided to tell everybody that they were horrible people. I don't think that's going to, what are you here for? This is not really going to productively help you in any way. It's going to make everybody not want to talk to you, and it's not going to give you the resolution you need. Maybe it feels good for 2 seconds. Hey, go back to the end of December and look at the 3 podcasts that we did on DBT and emotional intelligence and emotional regulation, right? Because that's obviously somebody whose emotional regulation skills are very nil or not very practiced. So that's my take on energy. Just want to kind of throw a few things out there. That's a conscious streaming, right? So I didn't follow an outline on this. I just started to go. But the second part of this podcast I wanted to bring up was environment. I saw something about you're in a job that you don't like, or you're in a position that you don't like. You are in a shift that you don't like. You're somewhere where you have to be there because you got to pay your bills, but you don't really like it. You're in a living situation that you don't like, right? Because of some temporary thing. You have kids and you need to make sure they're okay, or there's really nowhere for you to go because there's nowhere to move. There's not a whole lot of available apartments, whatever the situation might be. Just see if you can say, okay, well, I'm somewhere where I don't want to be, and I know I have a specific amount of time that I have to be in this situation until I can change it. What can I do? And trying to look at circumstances and saying, well, especially when it's occupational, that's really my main topic here. That's what it was. Somebody mentioned this morning, or I saw somebody say something this morning about, if you're an employer that treats your employees like crap, if you're a manager, or, you just don't have employees that are no good. And I think it was like the reward for working hard is more work or something like that. And no good deed goes unpunished and that kind of thing. And that was what this person was talking about. It happened to be a random conversation I was having with somebody about their circumstance. It is true that at some point you're going to, if you're the type of employer that doesn't really treat your employees well, or you're the type of company that doesn't treat your employees well, and I mean, I'm talking really bad. I'm not just like, oh, there's a few things here and there that we could change, but I'm talking like a company that's nefarious or known for being terrible. And somebody's stuck in that situation. People are going to start to leave. The people that don't do good work and aren't good people are not going anywhere, and you're not going to teach them a lesson, by the way that you do your management or your ownership of the company. If you give good people that are really doing their job well extra tasks, but no extra money, because that happens in a lot of places, that's not really effective or productive for your company. I mean, you want these people to be, it doesn't make them feel appreciated for sure. Saying, hey, you're so smart, let me give you a bunch of more work, and oh, that person over there can't do their job, let me give you their job as well as your job. Add a girl and, oh, hey, we're having a pizza party, or add a boy, hey, we're having a pizza party and we're going to celebrate you. I mean, whatever you want to say, anything that's not paycheck oriented. Yeah, those people are going to feel unappreciated, and at some point they're going to leave. But if you're the type of person who's in a situation like that, my statement to you is, and I only say this because I was probably 10, almost 15 years ago as a company that I really didn't like. And there was a reason for that. It was a subcontractor type company. There was just a lot. They were in the middle of going through, at some point they ended up Chapter 11 and all kinds of stuff. So everybody ended up leaving this company. This company no longer exists. Or if it does, it restructured and became something else. But it was just really being run horribly. There was a lawsuit and court dates and all kinds of stuff that came out of that particular job. Previous to me leaving there, though, I was like, you know what? The only thing I can do, especially because I was going through school and getting a degree, and I was in a field that I was trying to learn, not as a volunteer, but I was really kind of in that position where a lot of stuff was, I decided to just learn everything around me. Like, I'm going to have to at some point take some job somewhere else. And I just might as well know, or I'm in an environment right now where I may not like what's going on, but I'm going to just learn everything I can around me and take it somewhere else. And if you're in a job like that, it doesn't compensate for the fact that you're in a bad place. So I'm not saying you should put up with crap from people, but if you're somewhere where you need to be there and there's not a whole lot of recourse for you at the moment and you're waiting for something else to open up or whatever the case may be. At this time, I believe at this time there might have not been, at least for me, not a whole lot of opportunities because of the fact that I was so new in the field and there were so many things that I needed to learn in order to like leverage myself. So I decided, hey, I'm not really making good money here, but I look at all of this opportunity of stuff around me that I can learn and put on my resume. You know, when you're in a situation like that, build your resume. Just, you know, hey, here's some skills that I think I need to have to be marketable in the workplace. Is any of that going on where I'm at? And I'm going to go find the people that are doing that. I'm going to learn that from them. You might get handed stuff, but at some point you're going to end up having a whole lot more skill and understanding of the field you're in and all that kind of stuff, just so that when you leverage yourself into a better job for more money and less hours and, you know, whatever it is that's better for you when it opens up, that's going to be a reward that you bring with you and it'll pay off later. You know, and I don't know, this might be a Gen X work ethic that somebody in a generation, you know, that's a lot younger than me might not appreciate. But, you know, if you're in that situation, that's really the best way to do it. Just like hunker down and say, okay, well, what is going on around me that I can take and throw in my resume? I can learn it, do it for a couple months and say that I'm versed in this thing. And I came out of radio, and when you're in radio, or at least in my day, when you were in radio, I mean, you really did get involved in a little bit of everything, you know, from one side to the other, from sales to promotion to production to on-air stuff. You learn the business top to bottom. And so you may not like where you are and you may want to go somewhere else. But in the meantime, there's like a treasure trove of information that you can learn and become really good at. You can hone your skills really well. So again, I'm not sure if this applies to all occupations, but I think it probably does in some way, where you can just say, well, listen, I'm not really happy here. I don't like what I'm getting paid, or I don't like this, I'm dealing with a manager or a boss that I don't like, or, you know, there's certain circumstances that bother me. I'm driving too far to work, or, you know, I don't get to eat my lunch the way I want, or whatever the case may be. I don't think that's a kind of a small thing. But I mean, if you're dealing with something on a job that's demoralizing to you, that's a good place to focus your energy. Okay, well, I don't really like it here, but you know, what's happening around me? What can I learn? Can I learn to run payroll, learn to run industrial printers? Can I, whatever it is that's around you that you think that might be useful to you as a marketable skill, I say jump in and try to do it. As long as, you know, I mean, if you're in a place where you're not getting paid good and you're getting treated like crap and nobody's allowing you to learn anything, that's pretty bad. Most people, though, are in a situation like that anyway, are more than happy to have somebody jump in and help them with something, or even take this skill or take this particular task and do it. And I would say take it with you and make sure that people know, you know, in your next job and your next interview or whatever the case may be, that you ran this thing for this company, whether your name was on it or not. This was something that you ran from beginning to end, and you'll have the knowledge and the information to prove to them, yeah, I can do this. You know, there may be some kind of CAD machine or some kind of mainframe or computer system. I said mainframe. I'm not sure if they're still around. I'm sure they're still around somewhere, or some type of software, or just something that you know is good for the field you're in, and it's good to have on your resume, and you see it in your company. You see somebody running it. You see it on site where you're at. Go learn it. It might juggernaut you into a better position, a higher position, better paid position somewhere else. Obviously, maybe not where you are. Sometimes it does happen that you can actually jump where you are to a better position because of something you learned in the trenches. A lot of times, though, you're usually jumping from company to company, and that's usually the best way to jump your salary, is to move to a completely different organization. But something to think about on your 4th of July holiday, as we're off work for a couple of days. I personally am, not going to be off work. I work a ridiculous amount. But for those of you who have some holiday time and you're kind of driving around in your car, maybe you're sitting in traffic to get to a beach somewhere or whatever, think about that. What is going on around you that you can get your hands into? What can you tell people you want to learn? Can you say to your manager, hey, I know that Sally in accounting does this, and to be honest with you, I've never done that before. Say it however you need to. Well, what if she's out someday, or what if she needs help with something? It would be good for me to learn it, this particular program, this particular format, this process, whatever it is that it may be adjacent to your job. It may not be 100% what you do, but it's something that's going on somewhere. And if you know you can take it and tell somebody in the next job, I can do this, I'd say do it. That's all. that's that. We are still on a break from Dave, waiting for him to come back, but things are status quo for Dave. So I want you to subscribe to our podcast. I want you to download our podcast. I want you to 5-star review our podcast. Talk about how great we are. Obviously, don't say that if that's not true, but if you really do love the podcast, then let us know about it. I apologize that I'm being sporadic with it. There's stuff going on here. I had a birthday week, some other stuff happened. It kind of wasn't really around and getting stuff done around my house or whatever. And so I'm trying to get it done where I can without ended up until 4 a.m. editing stuff. So that's that. But this again should hit around July 4th. Based on my calendar, this should be when you're hearing this. We will talk to you soon. So yes, www.lananddave.com. That's our website, and everything that you need to know on our website's there. All our podcasts are there. Our platforms are there, and our podcast is available on just about any platform out there. It's all major platforms, and our social media platforms are also there. So our phone number is there. Our emails are there. So anything you need is on that website. So start there and branch out. But think about what I've said. Hopefully you enjoyed this little 2-part rant of mine, and I will be talking to you soon. Have a great holiday. Hey, you just listened to Love and Life with Lana and Dave. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share the podcast, leave us a comment or review, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any new content. We'll see you soon.